Hey, welcome to What's on Your Mind. My name is Peter Snauwaert, and today I give you Andreas Creten. He is the founder and CEO of Madewithlove. He founded that company in 2008, and the company is all about software development services. And we're going to talk about startups, the difference between the US and the Belgian culture, the ecosystems in startups, and all the lessons he had learned when he started. Very inspiring. A conversation for everybody who is living in the startup or scale-up world. And if you're an entrepreneur, also you can benefit from the gold nuggets Andreas Creten is sharing. Enjoy, Andreas. Bye-bye.
Welcome to What's on Your Mind with Peter Snauwaert. Every week, a guest talks about his or her story, and that story can inspire you to change your own. Here's Peter.
Hi, Andreas. Technology.
Yep.
It's great, eh?
Love it. Especially when you set up a podcasting studio.
Is this the reason why you started and studied informatics? To have some software and hardware which don't work together, or whatever you want to do with it?
I think the software and hardware stuff started before I started studying. I only studied because I had to. So I started playing around with computers when I was like 14 or something, when my dad threw away his old Dell computer, our first computer in the house. He claimed it was broken, but I think he just wanted a new computer and he disconnected the hard drive or something like that. And that's how I got my first computer, by fixing that one. And since then I've been working with computers. Yeah.
And was it still running on MS-DOS?
No, it was actually one of the first generation of Windows 95 computers. Yeah.
95.
So probably when I got it, it was running Windows XP, I guess.
Yeah.
And we were actually one of the first households in Belgium to get a broadband internet connection. So we never had a dial-up modem, so that probably also. And then I had a long cable running throughout the house through my room to browse on the internet. So that was fun.
And that's the passion of you. Computers.
I remember that I was bored in school and my dad printed a manual on HTML. So it was and I remember making and trying it out on paper, so like writing HTML on paper with frames and stuff like that. So that's probably the first thing that triggered what I'm doing today. And I've always been interested in technology in general. And the funny thing is I've been studying to become a sound engineer, so that also comes with a lot of technology. And then, I started my company when I was 18, and actually started my company almost before I went to school. So,
you started your company when you were 18. So, yes. I mean, I saw that you studied two things. You have a bachelor and a master. So this means that while you were studying, you were already playing entrepreneur.
Yeah, exactly. So I think I took my first client when I was 16. Don't tell the tax inspectors, but I took my first client when I was 16, I think, and then from then on I kept doing that. And then when I was 18, I formalized it into a company. And I think I hired my first employee when I was 19. Maybe even 18, I don't remember. So we had an office in Antwerp when I was 19, and we were with 4 people there. Me and my co-founder, a freelancer who was working for us on a permanent basis, and then a first employee. And so I studied indeed informatics. So actually, I'm coming from technical education. So I went to university, and they thought I was crazy, and they were right. So I wanted to study commercial engineering with an option for informatics. I dropped out after 6 months or something, and then my parents said you have to study something, so I went to do applied informatics, and there the teachers told me you don't have to come to the courses because you already have the skills. And actually there was a very funny story about that, is that I graduated, and for graduation you have to do an internship and some kind of project. But yeah, I thought it was a stupid idea to go do an internship with a competitor. So there is this system where you can prove that you already have certain knowledge, and then you can get the credits just by that. So I I got 1 year for free by proving that I already knew what I was doing. And you had to make a portfolio and some kind of file for that you had to submit to the Flemish government and present it. And the cover letter was written by Werner Vogels of Amazon.
Ah.
So I think by reading that first page, probably they already realized that it made absolutely no sense.
But when the Vogels, what time was that then? Around 2000?
2008, I think. I was actually the first Amazon Web Services customer in Europe.
Because Amazon Web Services started in 2006, I believe.
Yeah, but I think in Europe they're since 2007, 2008. And I toured with Werner I did a roadshow as one of the first customers with them throughout Europe. So I got to know them. And then while I was working, I was also studying, but it was more working than studying. And then I wanted to prove that school that that I could do a master's as well. So I went to do a master's after I finished my bachelor, and so I graduated in December 2013. Yeah.
I mean, if you already had the knowledge and you were already having a company, I mean...
It was the proof of my parents, I guess.
Okay. And your parents, are they all... Do you come from an entrepreneurial background?
No.
But, when you started your company, when you were 18, weren't you like, Andreaske, little Andreas... Why start a company? Why don't you work for the government or for Proximus?
Yeah, so my father is this typical kind of worker. He's been working in the same company for 40 years or something now. He's about to retire, and he's like on half-time retirement now or something like that. The crazy things they come up with. And my mother was a teacher. She graduated. She retired a bit earlier. So they were absolutely not from an economical background. And my family has always been in politics and diplomatics and science, basically. So absolutely nothing to do with entrepreneurship. And I think I'm actually the only one in the family, like in the broader family, who's an entrepreneur. Yeah.
But I assume right now they're quite proud of you.
Yeah, I guess so. I remember that I had to write a letter to ask them if I could start a company. I mean, not that I needed their approval, but I wanted their approval, obviously. And I wrote them a letter to explain why I wanted to do that, and it was an interesting time. Yeah.
Cool. Now we're going to go completely 180 degrees.
Yes.
We have one passion in common, and we are so different in our views. Is the fact that, I mean, the pandemic has pushed and caused and challenged a lot of companies, all of them, to work remote. Mm-hmm. Madewithlove, your company, has been working remotely from day one, if I'm...
Yeah, exactly.
And where did you get that motivator? Was it from Amazon? Where did you get that?
No, so you had to know So basically back then I was still studying, so I was studying in Hasselt, which is a city in one side of Belgium. I was living in Leuven, which is like in the center of Belgium, and then we had an office in Antwerp, which is the other side, more or less, of Belgium, let's say. So it's like pretty far away. And and also in that Antwerp office, so we did have an office in the beginning. So we've been remote from day one, because if you would say, I guess most entrepreneurs, we started from our living rooms or bedrooms, let's say. And so Jonas, my co-founder, he was living in another city than I was living. So we basically were already communicating through chat and all that kind of means, rather than having a lot of physical contact. So that's how we started. And then when we moved into the office, we had the office for 3 years. We had one person who was coming from Brussels, one from Ghent, one from Leuven. And we had someone from Rotterdam as well. There was no direct, there was a direct train, but it was a long train, so there was no Thalys yet. So, and at one point in time, after 3 years, we had to think about, okay, what are we going to do with the lease of the office? Are we going to prolong it or not? And then we decided that it makes no sense to all spend at least an hour a day, most of them 2 hours or 3 hours a day, in commuting. Let's all move as close as possible to where we live. And that meant, for example, that one of the people, he moved back to Madeira, because he was coming from Madeira. And that, I guess, really marked our remote culture. So I guess that's around 2010 that happened. But we have always been this kind of disconnected company or asynchronous company. And you have to know that most of our customers were in the Netherlands at that time, so it was also a lot in Amsterdam. So with our people in the office in Antwerp. So yeah, it was already from day one basically that we had this kind of disconnect.
And then your customers, they were in it from the beginning, or they also challenged it a little bit, because not the fact that because you have to be there to check what they're doing, but more of the co-creation part.
It's not because you're a remote company that you cannot go to your customers. I think that's important. I mean, for sure, we had a lot of meetings with our customers as well. That's not a problem. But I mean, I think we really went full remote around 2014, something like that. When I was also living in San Francisco, that made it a lot harder with time zones as well. But yeah, customers actually, we pick the customers that they are okay with that.
Yeah,
so it's the other way around.
Because in the US, it's already quite usual, this kind of behavior, because West Coast and East Coast, or not?
Yeah, for sure. But there is also still a lot of flying around for stupid meetings. So, yeah, they are way better prepared for it in the US, or mentally prepared for it, because indeed they have already the time zones, they have people moving all the time, they have offices spread out in the country, while in Belgium, of course, everyone's like, oh, you jump in the car and come for a meeting. But I don't think that makes a lot of sense.
Okay. Now, if you would go back and when, as an entrepreneur, what was for you the lesson that you would give yourself? I wouldn't say that you learned or failed or whatever, but what would you tell yourself? Well, what would you tell the Andreas when he started as an entrepreneur in his company? What would you tell him? Get some accountancy skills, get some commercial sales skills.
I always say that I'm pretty happy with how everything turned out. That's a very tough question. It's not that I'm missing like a certain skill. I didn't want the company to be like tenfold today or something. It was always our ambition to stay a small company, and it is still today. So I don't regret any things. I have a financial background. I did a master's in management, so I have that. I have organizational background. I have a technical background. So, and I guess I'm a good salesman because I'm the only salesman in the company. So, I don't think there is anything that I would on like skill set. There is one thing that I know is what I should do better is speaking. Like, I speak often too fast. That's something, and I've been to a therapist for that. And second, I guess to listen more. And it's something that I really try to do the last years, is to focus on. I tell the people around me as well that they need to stop me when I interrupt them, and I try to listen more, and that's very important. That's something probably when I was young that I was way more overruling or interrupting people, and that's probably the thing that, if you ask me what should I have done different, is maybe that. You know?
Wow, that's quite vulnerable to share that, because I mean, you're obviously very strong in what I call the hard skills, and the financial and the technical and the commercial, etc. Blah blah blah. But then to say, okay, of the public speaking, I understand that I have the same challenge. But then to admit I have to listen, that's really one of the soft skills, which is a very important one, to connect with your colleagues or with customers or with prospects. How did you find out? Was that your environment who told you, like Andreas Creten, shut the fuck up?
Yeah, I mean, that's a very cool thing about our company, is that we have a very open culture, and people indeed, I mean, not in that way, but it surfaced basically that, not that they find it a problem, but that sometimes it would make more sense for me to listen. And I'm very grateful for them sharing that to me, because otherwise I would never have known that. And that's the cool thing about our company, that we are that open and that transparent about these kind of things.
So this means also from the beginning you installed some kind of values, and you're going to every person who is going to enter the company, you're going to measure them according to those values.
Yeah. We say we hire for cultural fit or cultural add. So there is a big thing about hiring for cultural fit. That's nice, obviously, but if you hire for cultural ads, that means basically that your culture is going to be enhanced by the person you hire. So that's what we aim for. So in our recruitment process, it's something that we care about a lot. So that's the first thing we will check, and we have Yannick, our people manager, who's taking care of the interviews, and he has like a very strict procedure he needs to run through to figure out all these values. So we have 4 values that we think are important, and for example, honesty is one of them.
Honesty.
Yeah.
What are the other 3?
So we have sharing knowledge. So we are very, very keen on sharing knowledge within the team, but also outside of the team. So we give a lot of workshops, so we speak at conferences, stuff like that. We care about quality, so we will never compromise on quality. So if you don't want to have quality codes, then you don't have to come to us. So we don't compromise on that. And the last one is we are human. And with that I mean that I always say I wanted to build a company I would like to work for myself. And when I keep that in mind, that makes me take the right decisions. So we have always had, like, for example, 1 month of parental leave for dads. It's now the Belgian government is extending it to 3 weeks this year, 4 weeks next year. So we already had that since, I think, 4 or 5 years. And there's a lot of these kind of things that we install to keep our people happy. And for example, if someone his or her daughter is sick, they can go pick them up from school and they just work a bit later in the night. We don't really care about all that stuff.
That's the thing that I admire about you from the beginning, is that this value thing. And I mean, the examples, because I didn't know that you are mentioning, I don't want to go black-white, of course, but most developers, technical people that I know are very left brain, and on the soft skills side and the EQ side, the emotional intelligence part, there is still some room for improvement. But you are the example it is not. Where did you get those insights? Did you went to Dalai Lama or something?
No.
Or was it because you became a father that you...
No. It's, we have those values, or we have them from 2015, I guess. And basically we came up with them as a team. So it's not that... it's not that in 2008 I sat together with my co-founder and decided, okay, what are we going to take as values? No. Mm-hmm. The only thing I always had in mind is I want to have a company I would like to work for myself. I think that's a very important thing to keep in mind with every decision you take. And then I think in 2015 we sent out a survey to our team to gather the input for the values. And basically the question was like, what do you think we care about as a company? What are the values that you care about? And I think we got like 30 or 40 different words, and we started clustering them, and this is what came out of it. So that basically tells you that it all starts with the people you hire, because in the end they decided which values we will have. And so we did a good job on the hiring, I guess, which made that we have a very unique culture in the company today. I always say I have no EQ. It's not entirely true, but I'm not very good at this kind of emotional things. So that's might be that you think that is the case, but that's not true. I just have some good people around me who guide me in that, and that's you have to know when you don't master a skill that you have to find the people that can help you master it. So that's what I did.
Cool. You don't have EQ. I think everybody has a little bit EQ, and I cannot imagine you have 3 children right now, eh?
Yes, yeah.
I cannot imagine when your daughter's coming to you saying, Daddy, I love you, that you're not going to melt.
Of course I do. But I'm not, I always say my wife is my EQ. So I'm not a very, not the person who thinks about sending birthday cards and stuff like that.
Okay,
yeah.
But that's not what I meant. With EQ, I really mean, EQ is really about having empathy and trying to understand, trying to put yourself in the shoes of the other person,
yeah,
and understand the context where he or she is living in, to understand why he or she took that decision.
I guess I'm pretty good at that. I don't know why. Reading people, I'm pretty good at that indeed.
Yeah, reading people is one of the reading the room. Reading people, this is one of the core qualities of emotional intelligence. So, and it's not it's not a trait that everybody has.
Yeah, it's. I think that's also what makes us unique as a company is that most of our people have that combination of being a software engineer, but also with emotional skills and also business skills. I think that's very important. Most of us understand finance, even our software engineers, they understand the business side of things, they care about it. Because we mentor a lot of other companies, so our engineers, they really understand like how do you mentor people, how do you make people comfortable when you step in the first day in a new assignment. We think that's very important for a software engineer to also have those skills.
Yeah, I've worked with quite some of your developers of engineers, and I have to admit also that they are very easy to collaborate, even with a guy like me, who is a commercial guy. So, but also the fact they also have PM skills, project management skills. But that's the funny part which I found about your company is that all these people have like, I wouldn't say all these, they of course in the core they are software developers, but they have all these qualities around that, so they can drive a project on their own.
Yeah, we have this thing we call the responsible developer. So we think that the developer needs to be his own project manager. So indeed, we hire people that can take all the responsibility. So we have this profile. There is, I think, an article on our blog that describes it. And so we only hire people that fit in or can fit in that profile. Sometimes they don't know that they can, and we help them grow into it. But we think that's very important because otherwise you need to have an army of account managers and project managers and all of that to manage your projects. And then also we would never be able to do the work that we're doing, which is basically intervening in kind of falling apart, started through scale-ups. And you cannot do that with account managers and salespeople in between. So that's why we hire these people, and that really pays off because they run their own projects. They tell us when there is problems. They sometimes are very honest and I would say brutally honest with clients to tell them, okay, this needs to change or this is plain wrong, while other developers would hide in a corner.
Yeah, but I mean, some salespeople are good in some structures, like yours. I mean, to be honest, you are the best sales guy there is to sell your services. I don't think no sales guy or girl can ever replace that.
No, because the cool thing is that, because to be very clear, I'm not the only one doing sales, so I'm indeed the principal, let's say, but we have spread this load over 5 other people as well. But the cool thing is that we can immediately from the first meeting also dive into the technical. And if you need to, because we work mainly for CTOs and software engineers, so we need to get on the same level as them as soon as possible, because otherwise they're going to find us hostile or and then you end up in a very bad situation. So from the first moment we try to get to the right level with them, and we mean that. It's not that we fake that or something. We try to understand what their problems are, and actually a lot of times probably the CEO who hires us or the board of investors who hires us, but sometimes we're always going to pick the battle for the engineers, if it makes sense, obviously, and be their sounding board towards the management team. And sometimes it's conflicting with the interests of the CEO, but I don't really care about that. That's the honesty that I was talking about. And that's what people really value, and that's also why engineers want to work with us, because otherwise I would think there's another consultant who comes to explain how we have to do things. And that's not how it works. We really, because that's why we also do software engineering. We go down into the trenches with them. We hold their hands. We show them how it's done, so that we get the trust. And building up that trust is the most important thing to do. And once we have that trust, we start changing things.
Look, again, trust, emotional intelligence. Now, Andreas, I see you and your peers a little bit like the A-team of software development, because my assumption is, my perception is that not all the time, but in a lot of times you come in when somebody else tried, or they tried to do it themselves, software development, and the first version was a little bit moi, or is not working at all, and then you enter. Mm-hmm. I mean, why are you so attracted to troubled projects? Because you can only get better?
I think that, it's not necessarily troubled, just to be very clear. So I think 80% of the work that we do is what we call brownfield work. So the greenfield is new projects where we start from scratch, and the majority of the work is this kind of brownfield work where there is already a team or a product, and we take it over or we help them. Ideally, we help them. Taking it over is never the best situation. Why are we attracted to that? I guess it's because of my personality and to the extent the personality of the team as well, where we get bored pretty soon. So a lot of people ask me, why don't you build your own products? I've tried that myself. I've lived in San Francisco to work on the company. We sold it last year, but I've been working myself on it for I think 9 months, and the company lasted for 5 years, I think. But after 9 months, I realized I'm not a person to work on one product for such a long amount of time and only on that product. I need to have that drive of, okay, there is a problem here, I need to jump on it, and there is a problem there, I need to jump on it, and to have that adrenaline rush, I guess, when there is downtime or when there is like last week I'm consulting with a company and they just acquired another company and they want to add the developers to their existing development team, but they're different stacks and they didn't consult the existing team on the merger, so there was like kind of conflict happening there. So you need to bring up indeed the human skills to demine that situation, and that's the stuff that I love to do. And also to extend the team, they like optimizing things, and they like to find very deep technical problems in applications, stuff like that, rather than the greenfield, which is the easy thing, right? That also makes that we sometimes jump to technology, for example, that we're not very familiar with, but we just try it and most of the time it just works out because of the level of our engineers. It doesn't really matter. I guess that's the drive that we need, and that's why we're doing this kind of work.
Now Madewithlove is now with 20 people. Yeah. One of the things that from the beginning you were pretty clear of is making sure that the company stays small. You live in a world with investors, especially with the last 5 to 10 years. In Belgium, 20 years ago there were a couple of startups, but now, and it was then not so hip to work in a startup, but now it's the other way around. You see all these companies burning cash, like wearing a badge of honor. Working in a startup is also quite prestigious. But you never trapped into the. You never fell for the trap to make it bigger, to go bigger, and to create a middle management and to search for funding.
No, searching for funding for a service company would be strange. You can do that, of course, if you want to aggressively grow it, and then you go to a very big fund and you raise money, but then you're losing control. I'm still very young. I'm now.
Is that the driver? Losing control?
I want to have fun. That's the most important thing. I don't care about the money. For me, the money is a nice surplus. So I have a nice paycheck every month, and everything else that's profit is a nice bonus, but it's not my driver. And I just want to have fun every day. And we recently did a management buyout because we had an external investor, and we did a management buyout, and now we fully own the company again. And again, I believe in. I'll be doing this for 10 more years, and of course it will grow. I don't have any doubts about that, but I don't want to have this kind of aggressive growth where you double in size every year or something like that. What we're doing now is we're starting sister companies. So we have actually started another company, because you say 20, I think the actual number is 25, because we have a sister company now that we launched. It's called Smooth Sailing.
Smooth Sailing?
Yeah, Smooth Sailing. Yeah.
What does it do?
We call it a studio for durable design. So we do UX design, UX research and stuff like that. So there we are 5 people at the moment as well. So and probably we want to diversify. So maybe we will start other of these kind of ventures, under the umbrella of Madewithlove, or like Smooth Sailing on a different brand. Depends on the type of work that we do. For example, our engineering management services that we do, we want to expand on that as well, but we are going to do that within the Madewithlove brand. We just want to get more of those assignments. And
I find it an interesting one. Well, you know where I work, and combining open source technology development with design is quite a challenge, and you are doing it. So where did you get? Because these are for me, I wouldn't say opponents. In my eyes, they are necessary. I mean, okay, your code has to look very stable, etc., etc. But sorry, the end user, it needs to look good, and it needs to be usable. I mean, that's where the difference lies.
Of course.
Where did you get those insights? Because I can imagine that those companies are a little bit, I wouldn't say conflicting, but...
Yeah, so that's also why Smooth Sailing is a separate legal entity.
Yeah.
We're not the only shareholders in it, so we have a founder for Smooth Sailing, and Madewithlove is supporting him. It's because we see the need. We see a lot of clients struggling with it, and it has been already for 5 years that I wanted to find a solution for that. And we've been working with Hannes, who's the founder of the company, for about 4 years now, I think, on various projects. And now we decided, okay, let's kick it off into a real company and hire some people. And so now we're already with 5 people. We're running for a year now. I think we announced the brand in November last year. And so yeah, I think it's, but they do totally different work. They are not that, okay, you start with Smooth Sailing and then you come to Madewithlove. That's not how it works. They have their own clients, they have their own their own values, they have their own identity, and it just happens that we are a shareholder in that, because I believe there is the need for that kind of work in Belgium and abroad, because a lot of people forget about it. And in the US, they are way more ahead on for example, doing proper UX research before you build something, and so that's what we want to bring to Europe with Smooth Sailing.
So basically, in the end, you want to create an ecosystem.
Yeah, maybe you could say it like that. Yeah. So one of the services, for example, that we started doing also actively last year is recruitment. So so we actually just, I think today, are going to put a vacancy open for a tech recruiter. So we have already 2 people working on that. But we have such a huge demand on our services for recruitment as well, that we're going to hire a dedicated technical recruiter for it. But that also we're going to try to keep under the Madewithlove umbrella, because we think that makes more sense. So it depends on the type of service. And so for sure we will grow. But I don't want to have this kind of, when I say I don't want to grow, is I don't want to have these kind of targets. Okay, we need to grow by 30% every year, or we want to double the whatever. I don't.
But you don't want, and I really believe in that. You don't want to create the kind of, it has to be like that, or it must to force yourself, to push yourself. Like you're saying, like you said before, I feel it's more for you like playing, but I know you take your work very seriously. But you don't want to be. I'm going to use another word. I think the word more is you want to be creative and really go to and don't be pushed by numbers to limit you.
Yeah, that's exactly true.
And especially not other people who don't know anything about it and who are just coming to visit you to drink a coffee and to see what you have done with their money, and to know when they're going to get their money back with a very big margin on top of it.
No, that's true, and that's why I don't want to go with a private equity fund because they expect growth and whatever. And so the investor we had was a kind of different investor. They were absolutely not chasing the numbers. And basically what we did there as founders is we cashed out already a bit earlier, but now we bought the shares back. So that's what happened there. But I think we are fine as an independent company, and I hope we can stay. Maybe in the future again we will accept some external money if we think it makes sense to do it. But right now I don't think it makes sense.
What I just said was that your customers are it's startup scale-ups, and the pandemic has been an opportunity for them or a threat?
It depends on the industry they are in. So some of our customers really got hit badly. Others, of course, have been thriving. if you're in digital collaboration, obviously you're going to be thriving. But if you're a system for co-working spaces, to manage co-working spaces, you're going to be in trouble. So because we're not focusing on a certain industry, obviously throughout the portfolio of the companies we're working in, it has been a bit various. So yeah, I couldn't say like yes or no on that question.
Now, if you compare, we're now 2021. If you compare startup plans, scale-up plans with when you started 2008, 2010, what's the big difference there? I mean, what really changed there?
Yeah, I've been reflecting on that a lot lately because a lot of people ask me like, if I could start over again, how would I do it? And the thing is, I've been on the right place at the right time, so it's been very lucky that I was in Amsterdam in 2007 and in New York, and I met the right people basically. So that's how I got to know Rene, but also, for example, the CEO of the company I was a CTO at, he is now he has been the VP of design of Lyft, for example. He's now the VP design for Grammarly. And yeah, I was having a chat with an investor last week, and he was talking about his most important portfolio company is called Virtual Gym. I don't know if you know them, but they're...
What's the name?
Virtual Gym.
Virtual Gym. Virtual Gym, okay.
It's to manage, a lot of fitness centers use that to manage their subscriptions and whatever. And they are a very big company now. I think they will go public maybe in 1 or 2 years. But I had a picture actually when I was in Amsterdam, and it's two brothers that founded it, and they are actually on the desk next to us in the co-working space. You can see them in the background, them two sitting there. We with a team of 8, and they're just with their 2. So you can see how times are changing. And I remember in 2008, I guess, or 2009, I was a developer advocate for the company I was working with. Mm-hmm. So I was doing Madewithlove, and as that was my legal entity, and I was doing consulting work for the companies. And the company I was working for, I was an API evangelist for them. So I had to go to a lot of conferences. So I remember, I called it the circus. So I remember like a year running around in Europe, meeting all those people. But it was so small back then. So there was like the coolest conference was called FOA, the Future of Web Applications. It was in London, I think. There was no Web Summit then. I remember that I've been invited to the first Web Summit by what's the name again? The founder. I still found the email. I think it was Robin Wouters who referred to me, like, you should invite this guy as well. And I remember that he mailed me, there's going to be 800 people, stuff like that. So, because it was that small, I made a lot of good connections. And in the Amsterdam ecosystem, but also, for example, in Berlin and London. And those are things I still tap in every day when it's necessary. And that makes it, a lot of those people became investors, or they started to work for very big companies. And that makes it a lot easier for us to find our way throughout that ecosystem as well.
So this means that if you would start a company in 2018, it would be much harder for you?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if I would have to start what we're doing today, I wouldn't know where to start. I mean, you have to know that back then, there was... one of the things that I started doing in 2009, I think it was a thing called TWOS, Twitter Boost. So it was in Antwerp. Every first Thursday, I think we did it. And it was a drink up for people in the internet industry. So there was a website called twos.be. I think it's still, I'm not sure if it's like this. You had a beer glass on it, and that was the only thing you could see. And so if you were a nerd, you would go look at the source code, and on the source code it said where the next event would be. So you only had people from the internet. And I started that with a guy, Matthias Baert, and it was very, and we got the idea on a conference here in Leuven, actually, a very small conference. I think it only happened once, and I know that they didn't make it financially. But and that's where, for example, a lot of my Belgian connections were made. So I remember that we started maybe with 4 or 10 people, right? But in the end, I think 2013, 14 probably, those events, they were attracting more than 100 people. Mm. And that's also when I decided. And the thing is, what changed over time is that I gave the management of the meetup group away to someone else, and he decided to put it on Facebook and on so with the location and everything. And so we also started tracking other people. And at that point in time, I decided, okay, this is not. But for example, if you would have to start something like that today, I think it would be a lot harder. There was no meetup back then. There was only very few things happening, so it was a lot easier for you to be visual. Like I remember in Amsterdam, we had this thing called Stick. It was a union of all the startups in Amsterdam at that point in time. I mean, that's of course the second wave of startups. You had, of course, you had like things like Booking and Adyen and stuff that was already before that. But we started this Stick thing, and a company like Virtual Gym would be part of it. But also, for example, WeTransfer. So a lot of these smaller companies we were grouping together. We were organizing events, a bit like Startups of BE is doing in Belgium, but then really from the startups. And we were just a small community, maybe 20 companies or something. Like 20, probably every day 20 new startups are starting in Belgium. But that's just totally different. And in Belgium, there was no ecosystem at all. Really nothing at all. And that's why it was so easy for us to start up the tools thing. But I wouldn't know how to start with it now, because there's so much happening.
Now, today for startups, like you mentioned, there are a lot of ecosystems. If you want to become a startup, I think it's quite easy. I mean, like 25 years ago, it was you were just a small company, and now if you see that complete transformation in Belgium, the gap in between a startup culture in US and Belgium, I assume it's becoming smaller, or is it for you still?
It's totally different. I have a funny story that I always tell when people ask me this question. But in the 90s, everyone wanted to be Kurt Cobain and bought a guitar and started playing guitar, right?
It's a good choice.
Yeah.
I mean,
in the nillies, everyone wanted to be DJ Chester, and they bought a mixing setup. That's also my generation, so that's what I did as well. I bought a mixing panel and turntables and stuff like that, and you started being a DJ, right? Then
wait. So now you're going to say that you suck at playing guitar, and your mixing skills are not on par to enter Tomorrowland, or?
So I switched into sound engineering. So I realized that
which is
but I'm not a guitar player.
Which is a craft on itself, eh?
Yeah.
I admit, it's a craft on itself, eh?
I love doing it. And then in the tennies or whatever you call it, it was like everyone wanted to have his own startup, right? And now in the 20s, everyone wants to be an investor. That's the next thing. So just so you know. So the ecosystem is totally different, obviously. So the problem in Belgium and maybe in Europe as a whole is that there is a lot of governmental funding also going to startups. Subsidies, loans, but even government funds investing in startups. And because of that, a lot of ideas get funded or get a runway that shouldn't get it. That if they would try it in the US, they would fail from day one because they're not viable, they are not realistic. So I can shoot myself for sometimes seeing these kind of bigger accelerator programs in Belgium, and the company then reaches out to us like, can you help us build this thing? And then they tell me, okay, we have only this small budget, which is like maybe 1/10 of the budget you need to build something like that. And then I ask myself the question, why are they accepted into this incubation or acceleration program if financially it's not viable what they want to do, or they don't have the funds to do it? And then you have to look at, why are we doing these acceleration and incubator programs? And most of the times, for example, there is like the bigger ones in Belgium, they're if you look at where they're so most of them are part of a commercial ecosystem, for example, of a bank or whatever. And then if you look at where where they are in the budget of that company, it's always on the marketing. So that means the only goal for the bank to do that startup ecosystem is to sell more loans, right? And if you look at the government, why are they doing that? Because they want to create more jobs. Like, for example, we have a customer in blockchain, They get these kind of grants from the government, but the grant says you need to hire only Belgian payroll people, or Flemish payroll people, sorry. And that makes basically that they cannot find the right people. They don't exist in Belgium. So they are delayed by the fact that the funding they have is limiting them. And another thing, for example, is we have some leads in Wallonia, and but there they have this system, and we have the same in Belgium, of you can get these kind of vouchers to buy consultancy work, but they're limited to companies in Wallonia, so they cannot work with us. While they want to work with us, they are going to choose for a suboptimal provider because they get a 75% discount from the government because they're working with that provider in their region rather than another region. And that's stuff that's not existing in the US. In the US, I mean, I've been to pitch a lot of pitch days there with our own startup and also just as an audience. And if basically the investor tells you, okay, this is a bad idea, and the people, when 10 investors say that, they're not going to run to a government agency and try to get some money from there. I mean, and there is companies in Belgium I know that are running for years, really for years, on subsidies and grants and whatever, and they don't have a single customer, and that makes absolutely no sense to me. No. So we are actually artificially creating a startup ecosystem that if you would take away all that subsidies and grants and government loans, it will look totally different.
Interesting.
And I'm not saying I get frustrated about that because sometimes I think they shouldn't fund companies that are not viable. Don't misunderstand me. I think, for example, companies that have a social responsibility or have a ecological, want to do things in a more ecological way and are not viable on its own, but then go seek for funding from the government to make it profitable or just financially realistic. I'm all in for that, but not these kind of stupid ideas of people that want to do something then raise some government money, and that makes absolutely no sense.
Would you, and this is a hypothetical question, if you would move to the US with your wife and your 3 kids, and would you do the same? Would it Madewithlove US? Would it be the same company, or would you be doing something different there?
I would try to do the same. I mean, I really like what we're doing. I've been thinking about it also in the light of the management buyout. I was like, okay, is this what I want to do in my life? And I cannot imagine me doing something else. So I would do the same, And it's something that we have considered. In end of 2014, 2015, I was living in the US, in San Francisco. My wife was still here in Belgium. And I was there 2 weeks and then in Belgium 2 weeks. And we got our first child in 2016. So at that point in time, we had to decide, okay, what are we going to do? Are we going to live in the US or are we going to live in Belgium? She also joined me for a couple of trips to the US, obviously. But in the end, we decided, okay, we don't want to live in the US. I'm very happy that I took that decision in hindsight.
Why?
I always describe the US as a third world country. So there is this tech bubble in New York and in San Francisco, but if you step outside of that tech bubble, everything is very, very sad, basically. I've done a road trip with my wife for a month and throughout the West Coast and like a lot of the parks, and when you just drive along the road and you stop in a random town, you see the poverty of the people. And I understand a lot of those people for voting for example, for Trump, because they're so frustrated and their situation is endless. Not that I'm agreeing with them, but there is. And then if you live in San Francisco, there is this huge tech bubble. But I had an apartment on Nob Hill, which is close to Market Street. But if you walk on Market Street at 10 p.m. in the evening, you're stumbling over the homeless people. And during the day, the police removes all of them, but in the night they're back. And that's the other side of the system that people don't realize. And when I went to the supermarket in San Francisco, there was I was queuing, and people in front of me and after me, they were all talking about technical stuff and engineering, and I know this was a totally wrong ecosystem to live in, because it's really a kind of bubble. And now it's actually burst, like a bubble burst, and people are just leaving San Francisco, and because the house prices were, for example, also very crazy. And I'm very happy that I didn't go there. And I think the US is a really fucked up country, if you ask me, from what I've seen at least. Yeah.
Now, you say this is the only thing that I wouldn't say can do, but that I want to do. In 10 years, do you see yourself doing the same thing?
So there is.
I mean, if you say I want to be an investor, I mean, then you need money, and in order to get money, your services company. So this means you can only spend your person once. I mean, the hour he's performing or coding or whatever he's doing or she doing. Yeah, I mean, a software company is scalable, of course. I don't have to explain you that, eh?
Yeah, but it's not our ambition to be that. I mean, we have some ideas of how we can, of products that are content related, not software products, but content products that we would that we are building actually today. But that's not where the big money is, I guess. I don't want to be in. I mean, a year ago or 2 years ago, I wanted to be an investor, but then I started digging more into investing, and I figured like the investor is not the one making the big money. Obviously, it's the LPs that hopefully make the big money. So it's a dirty job to be an investor, and I don't think I want to do it, because then again, like I said, I don't want to have external people telling me what to do. If you're becoming an investor, you have again external people telling you what to do, because you need to have the profit for your LPs, and yeah, that's probably not what I want to do. So I am investing myself a bit, but that's with my own money, and with Madewithlove we're also doing some smaller deals, angel things, but it's not that we want to make our main focus. So if you ask me what I will be doing in 10 years, either it's doing what I'm doing today, or I have another passion. It's woodworking, and I'm actually my management company is also registered as a woodworking company, and I'm actually practicing that already. So is basically building houses out of wood.
Houses, not just tables and.
No, I do that. No, I'm not the man. I'm not the guy for the fine work. I'm really doing so. Because of the pandemic, for example, I built a cabin in my backyard to work from. And I built my own house, and I built another house already. It's like a wooden frame structure houses. And I can imagine myself if I am fed up with the whole technology to go and do that. I have a company that I can go to, and I know that they will hire me. So yeah.
Cool. So it's basically the same thing. I mean, you like building stuff.
Yeah, I like seeing the result of the work.
Is there some kind of meditative aspect on the fact that you are creating with your hands with wood, which is something completely different than code, which is always in with your head?
Probably yes, but I don't practice it enough to be very clear. But probably yes. No. I've also been doing, for example, I've been sailing. I've been doing sailing races, and I always told people that's like one of the only occasions where I totally zone out. Like it's skiing and sailing, by the way. I'm also a very big skier, but those two sports are things that you can only focus on the sport itself. You cannot focus on anything else, and they're also a bit technical, and that's what I like about it.
You sail?
Yeah, competition. It has been a while, because with the kids it's not easy, because sometimes you're gone for a couple of days for a race, and that's not easy.
And your wife is also a sailor?
Or? No. She occasionally joins on some trips, but no. I'm actually now studying to get my sailing permit, because they're changing the rules on the 1st of July, and from then you have to do a practical exam. So I'm now doing evening courses to get my permit to sail. Actually.
Cool. Now, what is for you a crazy dream? But crazy, yeah? Do you want to speak in some kind of TEDx for 1 million people in Las Vegas? I don't know.
No.
Want to play in a Hollywood movie next to Scarlett Johansson?
I already did that. So I'm not Hollywood movie, but Belgian movie. So I always have the feeling I already did a lot of things in my life, and that's nice. And so I've been featured on the titles of a famous movie from Erik van Dooy. I don't know if you...
Well, which one?
The Premiere. So it's a movie about the...
I know it. You were in there.
So we built it's a movie where there is a guy in the CIA is involved in the whole thing, and they have this kind of control room. Yeah. And so the whole control room was built by us, so it was actually functional. Because the director, he said, okay, we want this to be realistic, and so they called in our help. So I read the script, I remember it. I read the script 2 years before they started making the movie, and I actually edited it on being technically correct, so what's possible with technology. And then we also built the whole interface. It was like a very big touch interface where they could actually kind of follow the different cars and helicopters and stuff like that. So it was a very cool project. So yeah, we got featured on the titles.
Okay, but there was no, you were not a stand-in actor for
when
the naked scenes, so they hired you as a stand-in to show your butt or something?
No. And I mean, I've been in various books already, so I've checked a lot of those boxes. I've been on a big conference already, and on a couple of big conferences already. So I ticked a lot of those boxes. I think the story I always take is the Obamacare story. I don't know if you know what happened with Obamacare.
Yeah.
Why so many people make fun of it? No. So actually the Obamacare itself there is nothing wrong with it, and also the Trump care, what they have today, is actually very similar in terms of what they get and whatever. But they make fun of Obamacare, or the Republicans make fun of Obamacare because of one big reason is that Obama had the idea, okay, we make an online platform where people can then register to get the free healthcare, and so they worked on that platform, like a very big consultancy company worked on it, probably with 3,000 people or something for years, spent a lot of money. They launched it and it went down. So because it was totally overloaded and they were not able to cope with the load. And I think it was down for 2 weeks or something. And they couldn't manage to get it running. And that's why people say Obamacare is a fail, because of that. And then you have to think about what Obama did, and that's what I find cool, and that's what I at one point in time want to do as well. Not being the Obama, but the other side. He called, I think, Apple, Google, Microsoft, Dell or something, and he asked them, I think Cisco was also involved, send your best engineers. And they made a group of maybe 7 to 10 people that went in, and I think they fixed it on 2 days.
And you want to be part of that? That's
I want to be that team. Yeah.
Cool. That's a cool dream, man. Oh, that's a cool one. Now,
so that's what we want to do.
I mean, last question. When your kids are 18, what is the advice you're going to give them, or even before that, start your own company?
I mean, they have to chase their own dreams. No, I'm not going to push them in starting a company. Although I think in the economy we live in today, and what I see around me is that most people, I mean, I don't know, maybe 50% of people are going to be freelance by then. If you're not going into governmental stuff, probably you will be almost freelance. No, but they have to chase their own dreams. I don't really care what they do, and the only thing for me that matters is that they're happy and that they like what they're doing. Never going to push them into something.
What a closing, warm, loving state from a loving father who says, I have no absolutely fucking EQ. Andreas Creten, I want to thank you for your time. It was very inspiring, and just thank you. I cannot say.
Thank you for having me.
And I hope you had a great time.
Absolutely. Thanks.
Thanks. Bye-bye, Andreas.
Hey, it's Peter here. Thanks a lot for listening to What's on Your Mind. Looking forward to your opinions and comments. And don't forget to subscribe on psgrow.com and leave your email address to stay tuned for future episodes. Bye!